Hello, and welcome back to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, where we go book by book through the legendary Dragonlance series. As always, I'm here with my friend Shivan Bop.
Hello.
And today we are starting with Chapter 7, Not Destined to Meet Again in This World. And I just want to say at the very beginning, wow, this got dark.
I mean, this is definitely the Empire Strikes Back of Dragonlance, or at least the Dragonlance Chronicles. This is where everything is going wrong for the party. But at the same time, it's a really important set of chapters just because of how much exposition and how much the story setup we get. And also, it helps them finally make the parties manageable.
For sure. I had to make notes here because they split into two at the beginning here. And by the end of this chapter and the next, it's two different parties again.
Well, yeah.
They scramble them up in the middle here, and then they split them again. The chapter starts with Tanis, Sturm, Gilthanis, Flint, Taz, and Alhana heading back to the inn after separating with the Solamnic Knights. And we learn that the Knights wanted them to accompany them into the hills. Tanis refused, and then the Knights tried to pull like a power move using Sturm, which we learned something wild here. Knight Derek orders Sturm to take Taz and come with them, and then Sturm refuses. And then we learn here that Sturm's not a Solamnic Knight. He's a poser. Because Derek coldly states, he's like, that's a black mark on your record, and you better hope I'm not there the day that you apply to become a knight, because I'm going to testify against you. Tanis and Flint are like, wait, what? He's not a knight?
There's a couple of things here. One is like, okay, yeah, everybody's surprised because this guy wears knight armor, carries himself like a knight, acts like a knight, does all the knightly things, follows a knightly code, blah, blah. He's a knight's knight, right? And so, yeah, of course, they'd be like, what do you mean he's not a knight? How could he not have been like knighthood? He's got the thing. You don't get all this stuff if you're not a knight, right? But there's another thing, though, which is that they've seen Sturm his whole life. He was a refugee at like the age of 10 or whatever when they fled Solamnia and came there. He got raised in Solus. They've seen him for basically the bulk of his adult life. Do you think they wouldn't have seen him go off, and do you think he wouldn't have been invited to like the knight coronation ceremony or whatever? Like,
I guess we could have assumed, or they assumed, that when they split and did like the journey for the gods, that maybe that's when he went away, because I don't even know who he went away with.
He went north with Kitiara.
Oh, that's right.
Actually, though, now that you say that, that makes exact sense, because in the books we're told he goes off north for 5 years and he comes home with his father's armor and sword. So they could have obviously been like, oh, of course, he went home, he got his birthright, he became a knight, he came back.
Yeah.
But Derek Crown Guard and stuff. So now we're seeing this like weird politics of the knighthood. Crown Guard is a Knight of the Rose. Knight of the Rose is the highest ranking knights, like we discussed, Rose, Sword, and Crown. The swords used to be the clerics and like the healers, administrators, and like the kind of support staff of the army. The Rose were like the nobility, the leaders, the generals, the people who go through like the officer corps training at the military academy. And then the Crown are kind of like just the low ranking rank and file of the army, but people who are high enough to have gotten a knighthood, but are not of high enough birth to get into the swords or the roses, or aren't just not motivated to go beyond that for any reason. Some people are just career military. And being that like Derek Crown Guard is big boss man Rose, we're seeing right now already that, oh, this dude is also kind of a jerk. And he's like,
it's also interesting that he knows, right? So the numbers of knights must be so small that he knows personally, he knows every single knight and where they are in the system, because he knows Sturm. One, he knows Sturm has a right to it, right? He seems to know who Sturm is, but he also knows that he's not a knight.
Well,
so that I thought that was interesting, because it could have just been Sturm could have been like, well, I did it when you weren't here. I did it when you weren't here, right? How do you know who I am?
No, well, you were exactly right, though, because like the bulk of the Solamnic army is not knights. They're just soldiers. They're just recruits. They're draftees or whatever it is. But the knighthood itself is very small, especially post-Cataclysm. Post-Cataclysm, there'd maybe like 300 knight families in all of Ansalon.
Oh, wow.
Give or take. And these people are like in the olden days, when the gods were around, when everything was like bigger and broader, there was chance for Knights of the Crown to, take their quest to become a Knight of the Sword, to become a Knight of the Rose, whatever. Nowadays, it's almost become like ossified into a caste system based on when you were at the Cataclysm. Oh, your families were roses before. You have to start officially at crown and kind of work your way up, but you're basically a rose knight in waiting. Like, you know that you're going to be a rose knight.
And like, there's no entry for like new people. You have to like prove that you were like a family member, or like you need some kind of link to pre-Cataclysm.
It's not even proving. They know who all the knight families are.
Yeah. So it's like, if you're not one of those families and you apply, they're like, sorry, you're not on the list. You can't come into the nightclub.
They will find some way to crown guard you, right? Like, they'll find some way to be like, oh, I guess you didn't pass your trials. And Paladin's not here to tell us otherwise. Sorry. And so the Crown Guard knows the Brightblade name. He knows Sturm. Sturm probably went back and talked to the council during the 5-year period he was away in Solamnia when he wasn't on the moon, right? We do learn a little bit about what happens there in Brothers in Arms later. But Sturm and Kitiara both have Solamnic heritage. They go off north to go and find their families. Sturm goes home and finds that it's not great and that everything sucks. But in that time, yeah, he definitely could have met Crown Guard and the other knights, because he's like, hey, I'm a knight. I'm an adult. I've come home. I would like to have my thing now. And they'd be like, well, you didn't go through the process.
Got it.
You haven't become a crown knight, sword knight, whatever. You haven't. And you ran away, so you're a coward. So
I think there's also a hint here that we're going to see that not all the knights of Solamnia live up to the ideals the way Sturm does. The very first hint of it here is that that while Sturm takes this as his lifeblood, he has no right. Without my honor, I am nothing. These other guys are a little more flexible on what that means, because they're willing to tell him to kidnap Taz and come with them.
For Sturm, the knighthood is a religion. It is a monastic order. It is his like unbreakable guiding principle. For them, it's like a job.
Yeah.
It's just like the thing. Like, again, I look at this through the diaspora lens of like, when you're a minority living outside of your original country of origin, and you're trying to hold on to your culture and you're trying to hold on to like your religious values and stuff, like we here end up just grabbing onto them and like taking certain aspects and like pushing them to the nth, 12th degree to be like the most exemplary, like the untouchable version of this specific ideal. We push it all the way to the edge because we've got all these external like forces coming at us trying to like passively wear away the culture and assimilate us, force us into this. So if you want to hold on to this identity has to become like the armor that Sturm's wearing. It's a shell around you that you're basically like, everything I am is in this package. If anything gets through, then I lose my innate identity. However, when you're in a place where like your country is, you're surrounded by your people, and the knighthood is just passive in the air. It's just a thing in Solamnia. It's not like, oh my God, I need to hold on to these ideals and everything. It's just like, all my friends are knights, all my families are knights. We're all just, it's not a big deal, man. It's like, but when you're the only one, it is the only deal. This is one other thing I noticed as like being a Hindu in America, we're like super hardcore, like, especially for if certain classes of castes of people, it's like, oh, we're certain hardcore vegetarian, or we're deeply devout and we go to Sunday school and we do all these things. And then you go back to India and people are like ambient to passive about their relationship with the religion because it's just kind of there and just like,
it's in the air and it's part of the culture.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, whatever, who cares, man? It's like,
no one identifies. It's not an identifier of who they are. When you ask,
no, it's not an identity. When
what's important to you, they don't say I'm a Hindu, because like, well, everyone's a Hindu. It's not a thing that matters. So
exactly.
But here in the US and outside of India, it could be a big deal, right? You have to be a defining kind of.
Exactly. And so Sturm here, instead of seeing his countrymen and being like overjoyed to finally be reunited, he's obviously trepidatious and hesitant because he's seeing these dudes who have fallen away from the ideals, who are just like, wearing the armor because it's a gig, because it's like dad's business, not because it's the thing that they core believe in.
Yeah.
And Crown Guard is like not here for this random outsider scrub kid to come and give him crap about his culture and religion, when obviously this dude didn't even grow up with it.
Yeah.
He left. Who the hell are you?
Yeah. We jump to some exposition on the Lord of Tarsis. It's like, hey, why are we under attack? What's going on? And the Draconian, I don't know why anyone trusts Draconians at this point, man. They just constantly backstab everyone they're working with.
If a crazy lizard man in like weird tattered robes shows up at my door, chances are I'm not going to give him my city. I'm just putting it out there.
He was like, we were negotiating. I thought we were going to be safe. And the Draconian's like, the Dragon Lords got tired of negotiating. And Tarsis will be safe after it has been taught a lesson. Apparently the lesson is to burn it to the ground. So it's like, okay, I guess that's a crap deal. But they don't really care because they have dragons. So they don't have to care.
Yeah, they're like, negotiation is how they fill the time until the dragons show up, right?
Yeah. So by the time they're about to get to the inn, or they get to the marketplace on the way to the inn, and that's when the dragons attack. Waves of red dragons begin to light the city aflame. The dragon fear causes widespread panic. There's a mob, obviously. This is a town, thousands of people in it, all running and screaming as everything they know is destroyed.
Oh, dude, I love this paragraph, though. As the dragons swooped low, making their first passes over the town, the dragon fear flowed from them, spreading panic more deadly than fire. The people had one thought in their minds as the shadows of the wings blotted out the dying light of day: escape. But there was no escape. After the first pass, knowing now that they would meet no resistance, the dragons struck. One after the other, they circled and then dropped from the sky like red-hot shot, their fiery breath engulfing building after building in flame. The spreading fires created their own windstorms. Choking smoke filled the street, turning twilight into midnight. Ash poured down like black rain. Screams of terror changed to screams of agony as people died in the blazing abyss that was Tarsis. And what a paragraph. Like,
yeah, dark.
Margaret said that she was channeling kind of the ideas of war and the bombing of London from World War II. And then the idea of, like, you know, these fighters coming in with like fire bombs and like burning shrapnel, just lighting all these old wooden buildings. And it's a horrifying idea.
Tanis and everyone is separated, and he screams to them, meet at the inn if you can make it. Sturm's trying to protect Alhana, and despite having torn her away, he fights the mob. Like, she was literally being carried away by the mob, and he's having to just be this rock.
Yeah.
In this tidal wave of just pushing and punching.
He's like trying to go against this tidal wave of people running away. And if you've ever been at a huge event or like a parade or any kind of just massive humanity, if you're going the wrong direction, you will die.
Or you just don't get anywhere and you just get pushed across.
Yeah.
So wild. So it's so heavy that he gets her before she's trampled. And the best they can do is he dives into a doorway as a dragon overhead comes over. 1 second, there's yelling, people screaming, the street is full. And the next, there's nothing. It's quiet. And it's just so dark because if they hadn't jumped into the doorway, they hadn't escaped the flame, they would have been with... That whole mob is destroyed. They're just dead. Oh, he says, don't look, Sturm whispered to Alhana, pressing her against him, tears streaming down his own face. The dragon passed, and suddenly the streets were horribly, unbearably still. Nothing moved.
That is chilling.
Yeah. And of course, in these very tense, very emotional moments, Alhana is starting to feel something for Sturm. And we already know that Sturm is feeling something for him. And
exactly, right?
She, though, recognizes the situation and she's like, I can't keep interacting with this guy because it's never going to work.
Bad news. Yeah.
We have to split. And so they argue. He's like, no, I got to protect you. No, I have my duties. I'm a princess of my people and I have my own loyalties. And you have your own loyalties. You have your own duties to your people. That's like the only argument. How she's very good at her job, obviously, because she knew exactly what argument was going to work on him, is that he has duties and she has duties. And if he respects anything, it's the duties and that people put on themselves.
Yeah. If he respects anything, you're calling to serve people.
Yeah.
Right. And Alhana is like, first off, again, contrast Alhana with Laurana here, right? Laurana is like, oh my God, Tanis, it's bad for me, but I need to fall in love with him, whatever. And she's like all over the place, emotional and youthful. And Alhana is very much a trained diplomat and an adult.
Yeah.
She is like a full-blown, like world-wise adult who's like, I know exactly what this feels like, and I do not have time for this. This is not going to work for my culture. She's been lie back and take it for England, right? Like, she knows what her responsibility is.
I think we're starting to see what Laurana might become here, because this is Alhana after she saved her people.
Yeah.
Right? She's taken her people, taken them to Urgoth and come back. And Lorana's in the midst of becoming that leader. She's not that leader yet, but we know she's going to become that leader. So we're getting hints here of what Lorana might become, what she can be when she becomes. Isn't she the golden leader? Isn't that who she becomes?
Yeah, she becomes a golden general later. But yeah, like Lorana's got a lot of, I mean, and obviously we can't judge her. She's got a lot of growth to do. She's very much acting her age and properly. And Alhana, though, is like, look, this human is intriguing and I'm definitely feeling things for him. But also, she recognizes she is in a trauma situation. She is in an incredibly dangerous place and her emotions are not to be trusted. She's got bigger, like, she's got to run the Silvanesti.
Yeah, she recognizes her duties and they outweigh her own feelings.
Yeah, she knows her history. There's no way that the Silvanesti people are going to let her have a human knight on the side or whatever. And it's just like, this is not how this is going to go.
Even here, though, she falters because she's like, hey, maybe at the end, once I get with my friends and you get with yours, we might be able to help each other. And he rejects it, right? Because he's never been in love or he's never felt this way and he's feeling rejected. So he says, no, thank you, but you were right. We have our duties. And then he remembers the jewelry he found. He tries to return it.
Oh, no. He said something even more cold. He's like, do not concern yourself and do not thank me. I did nothing more than my code required of me. Farewell. It's just like,
he's hurt.
Yeah.
So he's acting cold. We've all done this in our lives.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Better people than me maybe haven't done this, but I have certainly been cold.
Oh, yeah. He definitely felt the rubber band snap right there. And he's just like,
yeah,
wounded and super sad.
He tries to return this jewel. Her heart weakens and she gives it to him. She says, no, you keep it. And then they both part and that's it. And then we cut to the inn.
Well, wait, though. That scene's not brush overable. I think that's actually kind of important. Sturm's been carrying the star jewel. He got it when they found Alhana the first time. And she's like, I'm pleased you trusted me with this gem, even for a few moments. The elf maid stared at the jewel for an instant and then began to shake. Her eyes lifted to Sturm's eyes, and she saw in them not scorn as she expected, but compassion. Once more, she wondered at humans. Alhana dropped her head, unable to meet his gaze, and took his hand in hers. Then she laid the jewel in his palm and closed its fingers over it. Keep this, she said softly. When you look at it, think of Alhana Starbreeze and know that somewhere she thinks of you. And it's like, oh, what is this? What is this random little token? This star jewel, big enough to have a name. That is something that is going to come back.
2 paragraphs down, Alhana watched him from the doorway for a moment, a protective shell hardening around her. Forgive me, Sturm, she whispered to herself. Then she stopped. No, do not forgive me, she said harshly. Thank me.
Yeah, it's like, look, dude, I'm saving you from a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
It is better that we cut this off here and now when it's literally nothing and there's no emotional investment, or like there's some amount of emotional investment, but nothing that you're not going to be able to walk away from.
Sturm doesn't know the lore of the Kinslayer Wars. He doesn't know that the elven people tore themselves apart over this very subject.
Exactly.
And she's not the group of elves that was sort of kind of okay with it.
No.
She's very much the scion of the elves who rejected it.
She is the most conservative of conservatives. She is the ones who blame the humans for literal everything. And honestly, they're not wrong. The humans did cause a cataclysm, et cetera, et cetera. But she is Silvanesti. She is like the most pure conservative Silvanesti you can get. And she's like, okay, look, the last time this happened, my empire fell apart. So instead, what if we just act like adults now and say like, yo, this is not going to work. That was a fun date, but I got to go. Next time there's a fire in town and people are dying, let's meet up. But otherwise, peace.
Yeah. And so, we cut to the inn. Riverwind is in charge as the dragons attack. They make some quick plans. They're going to hold up in the inn because they're waiting for people to return. And then, man, it gets real dark. Well, what are we going to do if we're overrun and they don't return?
Oh, yeah. Like
Riverwind says, like, I'll die fighting. But what about Gold Moon? And what about Tika? And Raistlin says, don't worry about it. I have a potion and we'll put it in the wine and they'll drink it. They'll die quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn.
You know, I, of all the things in this book, you're not expecting like, oh, yeah, there's a whole suicide pact that they made.
Yeah, I was not expecting the suicide pact where we won't let them take us. And I understand why they wouldn't want to be captured by the Draconians, right? You have a priest, two priests. The only good priests, the only good clerics on the planet are in this party.
Yeah.
It's Gold Moon and Elistan.
Well, the only good clerics that anybody knows about
Yeah.
that are in like Ansalon are on this part.
We learn that they're all going to kill themselves if they get caught. And then we cut to Tanis and Gilthanis, and they're fighting their way to the inn, and they see that it's under attack. Gilthanis collapses. Tanis leaves him and says, I'll be back for you. And then he heads for the inn, and then he finds Flint. Flint is trying to get Taz from under a collapsed house, and Tanis and Flint can't do anything. I'm going to read this to you because it's so... He says, stay with him, Tanis said unnecessarily. I'm going to the inn. I'll bring Caramon. Flint looked up at him grimly, then glanced over at the inn. Both could hear the yells of the Draconians, see their weapons flash in the glare of the firelight. Occasionally, an unnatural light flared from the inn, Raistlin's magic. The dwarf shook his head. He knew Tanis was about as capable of returning with Caramon as he was of flying. But Flint managed to smile. Sure, lad. I'll stay with him. Farewell, Tanis.
Oof.
Tanis swallowed, tried to answer, then gave up and ran on down the street. How dark is that? This whole party is falling apart. Gilthanis collapsed. Taz, Flint, trapped under buildings. Tanis running to the one building where his friends are, totally under attack. And it's just like, yeah, sure. Flint here does not believe that Tanis is coming back.
I think this is a really epic... It's such a contrast to the last book and the last set of books where it's like, oh, these heroes are very traditional heroes and they're heroing off. And now it's just like, oh, no, these people are actually just dying.
Yeah.
It does a really, really good job of setting up this notion that, no, really, the dragons are unbelievably powerful. The dragon armies are unbelievably powerful and unstoppable. And this little ragtag bunch of refugees is not going to be the one to do it. I think this is such a necessary scene to just establish what they're up against.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And like, you're exactly right. Like, Taz is effectively dead, right? Like, pretty much. These guys are not expecting to survive.
Gilthanis is also effectively dead because he says collapse from exhaustion. The best Tanis could do was like tuck him in a doorway and hopes no one finds him and kills him. But he's like writing him off. He's like, I got to get to the rest of the people. One by one, the party seems to be just being killed off. And it doesn't get any better.
I mean, it feels like a war story, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't get any better when we cut back to the inn and Raistlin says he's preparing his last spell and he can't even combine the ingredients. So Laurana goes to help him. She's like, what are you doing? And it's a potion that if taken will feign death in the drinker. Hopefully they will wake up later. And I don't actually know if he's lying here or if that's what the potion will actually do. We don't get that far. So he told Riverwind it will kill us all. And then he's telling Laurana, oh, it's going to make us appear dead. And then maybe they won't do anything and we'll wake up later. So
the elves revere life. So telling her this is suicide juice is not going to go well.
Yeah. So she helps him because she doesn't know any better. And then Caramon's there. He's like, the front door's breaking in. We need to get to the kitchen. But the door to the alley from the kitchen is also breaking down, and they're about to feel overwhelmed, but it's Tanis. He got through.
Throwback to Autumn Twilight, baby. What happened the last time we tried to run away from the Draconians? We went through the kitchen. Nope, can't do that this time.
Yeah. So it's Tanis. He's like, hey, guys, this is where I think everyone is. And he sees the wine pitcher, and he knows, right? Like, that's also interesting, is that Tanis understands what Raistlin was doing. And then he says, no, get everyone together. And they think, like, they're like, oh, we're saved. Tanis showed up. He's the leader. He's going to save us.
Well, here's what Raistlin said, right? Like, welcome, Tanis, Raistlin whispered, coughing. You've come in time to die with us. And then Tanis looks at the picture and sees the black pouch lying near it and then stares at Raistlin in sudden shock. He's very good at putting two and two together. And he's like, no, I'm not joining your cult, buddy. This is not going to happen.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, everything's going to be fine. Tanis is here. And Tanis is like, oh, why are they trusting me so much? I don't really have a plan here, but that's the role of a leader, is that people expect you to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Tells them their plan, which is basically, let's run out the back door and hope we don't get caught. And Raistlin says, well, I don't know if that's going to work. It seems that we're being specifically targeted. There are lots of inns in this city. Why is this one specifically being surrounded by draconians?
Yeah, it turns out we're the ones making everyone else unsafe.
Yeah. As he's trying to do something, the inn collapses. And right as it collapses, he pushes Laurana to safely. And here again, we remember that Elistan happens to be with them. And he just happened to be off stage here because he pushes Laurana into Elistan's lap. And then the building collapses upon them. Raistlin's shaking a spell, and then there's blackness. And then we cut to another member. So inn collapsed, everyone dead, we think. Back to Sturm.
Yeah, basically. This chapter is really, it shows Margaret's incredible skill at writing these kind of big, monumental, like, scenes. Because, like, the scene cuts are at such perfect places. And the jumping back and forth makes it feel like an old-timey war movie where you're like, oh no, what happened? Oh no, we're somewhere else. Oh no, what happened? Oh no, we're somewhere else. And you keep going back and forth and back and forth. It does not let up. And it's just really exhilarating to read.
And we're getting the same thing from different points of views, because like right as the building collapses and we know Raistlin and everyone's inside of it and they pass out, Sturm arrives and he sees the building collapse and he's like, oh, what am I going to do? And he sees draconians. Some in red are happy, others in blue are distressed. So there's two different groups of draconians here, and they seem to have
factionalized,
be it cross purposes. Yeah. He sees Elistan, so do the draconians. He starts fighting them, and he's joined by Flint and Gilthanis. They kill the draconians. They kind of catch up. There's like convenient because Laurana's like, look, here, I found your blade in this little hole here. There's also Kith Kanan's blade.
But also, I like that, like, you know, they show off that Gilthanis is also like a magic user here by letting him shoot a magic missile to get like the draconians off. He's like, yeah, he's like an elven spell blade.
Laurana is grief-stricken. She wishes she was dead. And they said, no, we have to keep moving. We can't stay here. And then we cut to Raistlin. Wakes in total darkness, water dripping on him. He panics for a moment before collecting his composure, right? He has a moment without control. The thing he hates the most, he always has to be in control. So he calms down. He realizes, oh, my brother's on top of me. Of course he is. He always protects me, right? Like, he's kind of annoyed by it. He realizes that his brother's alive, but unconscious. We learned that the last spell he cast was like it created a shield around them, and it's sort of like the building collapsed around this shield, and now it's kind of like there's like one safe bubble.
Yeah.
Where all the wreckage kind of fell together in such a way that it won't hurt them. But they can't get out.
Yeah, it kind of makes like a force bubble around them. But that's a really like a higher level spell than I would have thought he would have been able to do. But they kind of gloss over it and we don't really think about it.
Yeah. He finds his staff. He lights up. Everyone else who's not Sturm, Taz, Gilthanis, and Flint is here. It's Tanis, Riverwind, Goldmoon, Tika, Raistlin, Karaman. They get together. They're safe. Goldmoon heals everyone. They realize that they're in the cellar, right? When the building collapsed on them, it pushed them down into the cellar, and they're stuck there. They try to get out, but if they dig out, things will fall in, and they stop because they start to hear goblins complaining about digging. And they're like, no one's alive in this mess. What are we doing? The draconians tell them, like, you know, if we wanted your opinions, you'd be in charge. They're like, what are we even looking for? It's like, well, spies that the Dragon High Lord wants. And they prepare to fight because what else can they do? They're about to be found. New sounds above them, yelling, screaming, birds screeching, the tearing of flesh. It's like,
yeah, what the hell is going on up there?
Something awful is happening up there. Now there's even more digging, and a huge clawed foot plunges through the debris, and then nothing. Tanis tells Karaman, like, hey, why don't you go check it out? And I guess Karaman's like, well, I guess I'm dead, because...
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Pokes his head above, and they see a human figure, and behind it is the head of a giant eagle. I like this. This is the last line of the chapter here, and it says, we meet again, Tanis Half-Elven, said a voice as cool and pure and distant as the stars. And we know immediately who it is with a voice as cool, pure, and distant as the stars. Yeah. Who could it be? And that's how chapter 7 ends.
That's a hell of a chapter, though, man. What a
It's a roller coaster.
What a ride.
And chapter 8 is Escape from Tarsis, the story of the Dragon Orbs. So that's the chapter. I'm interested how they did this in the modules. Is it this kind of cinematic thing, or had they already separated it out like we talked about earlier, where they just said, oh, we'll deal with this one party in module 9 while you're here in module 6?
Yeah, so it's interesting because like the modules, the first 4 modules were written simultaneously with book 1 and were kind of told in tandem with that story. The rest of the modules afterwards, Winter Night had been written first, and then the modules followed after the novels thereafter to kind of be a better story. So the trick here is that with when you start in Dragons of Ice, which is module number 6, DL6, which is the first part of Winter Night, because DL 1 through 4 was the Autumn Twilight, DL 5 was the
Hammer Hunt?
No, DL 5 was actually not the Hammer Hunt. The Hammer Hunt was at the end of DL 4. DL 5 was the first source book, the first book that give you like the ideas, like what is Krynn, where is everything, who's going on here.
Got it. General background.
Yeah, it's like general background stuff and general, like just the world source material. So DL6, it starts with this intro when you look at the module, which is like, it's the 6th module in the Dragonlance Saga. It begins the 2nd book, Tales of Winter Night. The saga is a story, and the characters listed on the cover of some of the heroes of the Dragonlance epic, etc., etc. If your party had played previous Dragonlance adventures, DL6 represents a major milestone. Here, the heroes are split into 2 groups. This module is concerned with the southbound group, the Heroes of the Lance. The characters not included in this group will return in DL10, Dragons of Dreams. Several new characters are added to the party so that the players whose characters are not part of this adventure may play with new PCs. The heroes will make up the party for DL6 through DL9. If you only have 6 players, you use Aaron as an NPC and don't play Derek. If you got 7 or 8, you can play as Aaron and Derek, etc. Effectively here, what they're doing is they're just like being very heavy-handed. And they're like, look, our story is going to follow these characters. Here's the player cards. Here's your PCs, because each module came with like a set of cards that had all the characters on them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, look, if you want to play this story, these are the characters we're using in this story. And if you want to make your own, you can just match up kind of to what we've got going on here.
Is it kind of a shift from the first 5 where it's like you use your characters, and from here on out, it's like, no, here are the heroes of the Lance. You will be playing as them.
In the first module, they gave you their NPCs. Not NPCs, they gave you their pre-constructed PCs. They give you Tanis and Lorana and all their stats and let you pick them to start with, or you can make your own.
Got it.
And then in this series, they're like, look, you can keep making your own, but if you want to follow the story that we're telling and you want to play those characters, here's those characters. This is like why Dragonlance became known as what's called a railroad.
Yeah.
Like we discussed this early on, where it's like, look, this adventure has a start, a middle, and a finish. It's got a very specific path. This is basically where RPGs go from being wide open world to being more Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest type of like...
more story oriented.
Yeah, you're a specific hero. This is a specific story and we're going through it. People like that or don't like those, but...
Making a guess here, but it sounds like from the name of Module 10, Dragon of Dreams, that 6 through 9 deal with Lorana's group and heading south to Icewall.
Exactly.
And 10 through whenever deals with what we're actually going to be dealing with next in the book.
Yes, exactly that.
Okay.
When you, like, just to give you the heads up of who the characters are in here, the characters that they give you on the character cards: Lorana, Gilthanas, Elistan, Derek Crownguard, Aaron Talbo, Flint Fireford, Sturm, and Taz.
Got it.
That is the crew that they're expecting that you will play with. And ironically, Lorana is listed as an NPC. So they want you to be playing as Elistan. Like, legitimately, Elistan's like, this tells you...
Well, he's buff now.
Yeah, this tells you the difference between, like, the novels and the modules. Elistan is a major player character in the modules because he's the cleric.
And that's the different, right? Because Tracy wrote the modules and Margaret kind of wrote the books, right? So there could be that shift.
Doug Niles wrote Dragon Device.
Okay.
Doug Niles wrote Dragon Device. But yeah, basically Margaret was like, I hate Elistan. He's not going to be in my story. He's in the story because he has to be, but not because I want him to be.
And in the modules, he plays a bigger role.
He is the cleric. He's the main guy. And if you're playing an adventure where your job is to find the gods, having somebody who is devoted to the gods makes sense and is important.
It's interesting that the first modules deal with a part that's not even in the book, right? The books deal with Tanis's party, and that doesn't come till later modules. That's an interesting little...
Yeah, it's like, I think actually the beginning of Dragons of Ice. Is this the beginning of Dragons of Ice?
Probably has the attack on Tarsis, but after that,
Yeah, the beginning of Dragons of Ice starts with the attack on Tarsis. You guys have come down from Thorbarden. The end of DL4 has the actual adventure through Thorbarden, because like you can't just hand wave it, right? Like you have to have some explanation of where these people are coming from and why.
that's interesting. All right. Well, chapter 8, Escape from Tarsis, the story of the Dragon Orbs.
The Dragon Orbs. I had to read a lot about the Dragon Orbs because of their impact in the new Dragonlance novels. And so Margaret was like, find me everything about the Dragon Orbs. I'm like, well, there's a lot. So
This chapter starts, we're at the dragon's point of view. It says, dragons flew on their leathery wings above the gutted city of Tarsis as the draconian army swarmed in to take possession. The task of the dragons was completed. Soon the Dragon High Lord would call them back, holding them in readiness for the next strike. But for now, they could relax, drifting on the superheated air currents rising from the burning town, picking off the occasional human foolish enough to come out of hiding. The red dragons floated in the sky, keeping in their well-organized flights, gliding and dipping in a wheeling dance of death. No power on Krynn existed now that could stop them. They knew this and exulted in their victory. It's like, oh, wow.
just rub it in, buddy.
Yeah, and it's a transition from everything's falling apart to enemies glorifying in their victories here.
Gloating.
Occasionally, something would occur to interrupt their dance. And we learned that, some things are happening by an inn. Should one of us investigate?
That's too much work. I think my favorite little tidbit here is that there's a new Dragon High Lord in charge of the Red Army. A bloated hobgoblin.
Yeah.
Because obviously Verminard got incinerated last time. And so somebody's got to run that faction, and they're going to grab the closest person.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
That Master Toad is now the Dragon High Lord.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? The essence of falling upwards, baby. Like, homie is the middle manager who made it.
Well, and it's like the dragons fondly remember Verminard.
Yeah, it's like, he had been a Dragon High Lord, not like this idiot.
Yeah, so these red dragons are going to investigate the inn, and right as they're about to do it, they're stopped by a different High Lord in blue armor on blue dragons. As they're talking, they see griffins flying from the inn, and the red dragons go to pursue, but the blue dragons stop them. And here again, we see this blue-red opposition. The blue High Lord makes threats about leaving these fleeing humans to them. If Toad complains, remind him that others know how the blue crystal staff was lost.
Burn.
You might not be a High Lord long if people know how you came to this position, right? Why Verminard fell. Because
you killed him.
You would think people in the Red Army below Few Master Toad would also know this information and use it against him, but apparently not.
Well, remember, the Red Army is led through fear. If there's a dude who Takisis or Ariacus decides is in charge, you're not going to fight them on that.
Yeah.
But this is so interesting because this is the first time we're seeing a different dragon army. It's not just the red dragon army. We're seeing, Takisis has multiple dragon armies on her side, and they're run by different organizations.
We can guess. I don't even know if we see them through all three books, but we know there's green dragons.
Yeah.
And we know there's white dragons and black. So there's probably like a black army, a green army, a white army.
Yes.
Though we never see them, I don't think.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything since I know you're reading forward. But as we go into Icewall, I'm just going to note that white dragons are dragons of cold and frost who have icy breath.
Probably show up there. That makes sense. I'm
not saying that this might have anything to do with where they're going or the fact this module is called Dragons of Ice or anything like that. Just putting it out there, just ambiently into the air. However, the black and the green, we don't ever see directly. They're in parts of Krynn that are not necessarily, like we see green dragons later on, but not the green dragon army specifically.
Got it.
They're run by, other people in other places.
Interesting. So then we cut to the Griffin and we learn that Alhana and the Tanis group are on the Griffins. She saved them from the inn.
Now, I'll be straight up front. When I first read this as a kid, I was totally blindsided by the fact that was Alhana. I didn't know who it was.
Oh.
Like, I realize now as an adult, it's like, oh, it says cold and stars and all. Of course it is. But as a kid, I was like, oh my God, it's Alhana. They got saved.
And we put together that her friends were these griffins. That she said, oh, when she's talking to Sturm, she says, I have to meet up with my friends, and maybe I can meet up back with you at the inn.
Mm-hmm.
She decided to do that, even though Sturm said don't bother, and it's a good thing she did, because if she hadn't, Tanis and company would be dead.
Very, very dead.
Tanis is like, okay, well, we need you to drop us off so we can get back with our friends.
And Alhana's like, hell no. This train does not stop.
She's like, actually, I came to this town to find people to help me save Silvanesti. And here I have found people who will help me save Silvanesti.
You are welcome to take the emergency exit anytime you want. It is right there off the wing. Good luck to you. We are not stopping.
Yeah, Tanis is like, oh, the pride of elves. And then Alhana complains about the greed of other races. And we learn here how the elves, like you said, feel that the reason the cataclysm happened is because humans and dwarves were greedy and wanted more. And because of that, we lost everything.
Yeah. Tracy makes an interesting note in the annotated, which is like, the princess might be a little high-handed, but she does us a great favor here by actually splitting the party into manageable chunks.
Alhana says, besides, if you help me, you will be rewarded with a Dragon Orb. I have a Dragon Orb. Tanis asks where Sturm is, and she's like, I don't know. It's not important. We parted. And she's like, why didn't you ask for Sturm's help? And before she can answer, or she just ignores him, Caramon gets her attention.
No, she's like, none of your business, buddy.
Yeah, and they're being pursued by blue dragons. And it doesn't focus on it much. It just says that this chase is awful. The griffins fly all night to get barely ahead of the dragons, and then they have to rest at night. And then when they get up in the morning and they look up in the distance, they can see the blue dragons pursuing them.
Yeah, so dragons could have, given their movement speeds and energy and everything, they could effectively fly across the continent in 2 days. So they have a lot more energy than these birds do. And the fact that they didn't stop when the birds had to rest and just eat them tells you that there's an ulterior motive in mind.
During one of these rest periods, Tanis asks Raistlin, he's like, what do you know about the Dragon Orbs? Raistlin goes into a fugue state, apparently. And we learn a lot of things here. During the Second Dragon War, the orbs were created by the Orders of High Sorcery. All three orders work together. They set aside their enmities. And then here we learn of the secret black moon, Nutari, that no one else seems to know about, even though we've talked about before how it doesn't make sense when it would have been causing eclipses constantly.
Yeah, so this is technically the first time that they mention Nutari in the books. This is where belief becomes, suspected disbelief, it gets stretched here a lot. Tanis like 3 moons? It's like, homie, you grew up with the elves. They're magic users. You can look at the sky and see. Now, the only way I can imagine this working is the fact that the moon itself would hide itself in such that you don't see the black orb just blocking the light, except during the Night of the Eye.
On the Night of the Eye, when do they describe that? In what book is that described as? Is it in the very first modules, or does that come later? Because maybe at this point, Nutari, the Night of the Eye isn't a thing, and that came later.
As a concept in the game?
As a concept in the game. Maybe it came later that there's a Night of the Eye where magic is heightened.
I feel like it was... give me a second, let me look. But the thing is...
It sounds cool, though.
Yeah, it sounds way cooler. Ooh, there's a hidden moon. Okay, I can understand. Okay, look, you can't see the moon. The moon is invisible. If you are in touch with the powers of magic, they allow you to get a glimpse of this hidden black moon that shows up and goes around. Maybe the Night of the Eye is only for mages to see, but it feels like there's enough legends and stuff around it that they would know.
As Shivam looks up maybe when that became part of the Night of the Eye, we learn of Nutari and these things called the Lost Battles. We also learn that 5 orbs were created and they were taken to the 5 towers of high sorcery, and that they were used to help defeat Takisis.
Okay, so maybe I'm full of crap. Hang on a second, because the Nutari in DL5 is The new Atari is a black moon of Krynn. Its existence is only known to astrologers, navigators, magic users, and others who watch the heavens, for it is known only when it blots out stars and planets. The influence of black magic waxes and wanes according to its position in the heavens. Okay, but that's also BS. So that's a large category of people who are just like, hey, I'm familiar with this mystical device.
I guess they expect adventurers not to talk to very many astrologers.
I mean, must be. But it's a little kind of hokey.
When it's funny, because right here it says, Raistlin just gives this huge info dump, and then they start to ask him follow-up questions. And he's like, what are you guys talking about? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't said anything yet. So clearly this was Fisted Dantalus giving them this information, right? There was...
Yes.
Actually, it sounds like Fisted Dantalus might have been there when these orbs were created, because he kind of describes how they all went in together under the light of the three moons, and we created this, and I got the feeling Fisted Dantalus was there when they were created. I don't know if that's the case.
It is heavily implied that Fisty, or the Lich that becomes Fisty, or something to that effect, was definitely there.
Yeah.
He is the most powerful black wizard there ever was. So it kind of makes sense that he would have been there at the time to deal with that.
Goldmoon asks Raistlin again, it's like, okay, so what do you know about it? And he's like, there were 5 of them. Great evil will come to those who try to use them are not powerful enough. 2 orbs were destroyed in the fall of the Towers of High Sorcery, and 3 were lost. Then Alhana says, no, my dad has a Dragon Orb. She thinks her father has tried to use it. She wants Raistlin to explain, and Karaman says it's no good. He doesn't know. He just sometimes knows things, as if he became someone else, but it always leaves him exhausted and he never remembers.
You know, it's wild. Sorry, to go back to the moons here for a second. If you read the end of the first book, the Song of Huma is in there. And the Song of Huma, literally, which is, Raistlin's religious, epic that he memorizes, talks about the fact that the 3 moons themselves stopped in the sky, et cetera, while Huma is doing his thing. God, I hate this poem. The hardness of choices, and Huma remembered how the wilderness cloistered and baptized his first thoughts beneath the sheltering sun, and now, as the black moon wheeled and pivoted, drawing the air from blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's a whole black moon. There's a whole friggin' paragraph of black mooniness in here. Come on.
It's just poetic license of a black moon. They're really...
Truly, that must be it.
It's wild to, Raistlin doesn't know anything. Fisty says what he knew, but is very vague. And then Tanis follows up with Alhana. She knows a bunch. Because guess what? Her dad was there.
Well, no, her dad was not there during the founding of the orb.
He was there before the Towers of High Sorcery fell, before the Lost Battles. And we learn about those here.
The Lost Battles were 4,000 years ago.
Oh. I thought she explained that that's...
So you have the timeline a bit wrong here. The idea is the Lost Battles. So first off, there were the 5 Dragon Orbs were created for the second Dragon War. They were created a million years. No, well, for the third Dragon War, I guess it was at the end of the Age of Dreams. They were created by the mages to fight against and control Takis's dragons. They meet at the towers. They put them together, etc., etc. One of each orb was put in each of the Towers of High Sorcery and then moved around as needed. And then there was later on, the towers are out and about, and the King Priest of Istar is growing in power, taking over, becoming more and more powerful, leading up to the time that would become the Cataclysm. And the Empire of Istar is puts out their edicts of thought control, their edicts of all the evil races have to be exterminated, and wizards are bad because they're doing things that are not God approved, even though they're following their own gods, but they're not getting their power directly from the deity. So they have this Istaran kind of thing they call the Lost Battles, because nobody actually won, and because the wizards lost their towers. The King Priest and his buddies go off and they start to invade the towers. In each of the towers, so the 3 towers that were lost, there was the Tower of High Sorcery in Daltagoth, which was in Urgoth. The mages there blew it up themselves rather than let it be taken over. The Tower of High Sorcery in Palanthas, which the Black Robe Andros Rannoch jumps out the window and impales himself and turned it into this full-on evil place before the leader of that tower could hand the key over to Palanthas. And then there was the tower in Istar itself, where the King Priest took it over, got the key from the High Mage, and turned it into his personal palace.
The last tower is at Wayreth?
Yeah, Wayreth.
Yeah.
That's the main tower. That's the one that's kind of near Qualinesti, but it can move around because of magic. And then the 5th tower there is off in what becomes Kendermore in a place called Lasarkum. The wizards there blew up their tower. The tower not only leveled itself, but also completely destroyed the Lasarkum civilization there, which is why the Kender were able to find these ruins and stuff later on. So basically what the point here is that Lorak, who is the Speaker of the Stars and the Alhana's dad, he was a young wizard in the Tower of Istar. He was there kind of being trained the way that, royals send their kids off to the military to go and be practiced. He's like, oh, you're the king. You should go dabble and do some degree in something. And he's like practicing to be a wizard. And he goes off and he's in the tower when the king priest hands it over. And the Dragon Orb is a sentient, self-aware device, the most powerful magic device ever. It effectively convinces Lorak to sneak it away.
So that's pre-Cataclysm.
Yes, that is right before the Cataclysm.
So he's real old.
Elves live for a long time, but it's only 300. But remember, we're only in like the late 300s here. And
yeah, I'm just saying that he was there before the king priest took it over, or right as the king priest was taking it over.
Yeah, so Lorak is like 400 or 500 years old.
The Lost Battles happened a couple hundred years before.
Yeah, the Lost Battles happened like 20 years before the Cataclysm, give or take.
Okay, so right before. Okay, it's the same king priest who defeats the wizards, who calls down the. Okay, understood. Got it.
Yes, exactly that. Good old Beldenus.
Alhana knows a lot here because she says, oh, my dad rescued the Dragon Orb. It's been in Silvanesti ever since. She sets up here, as Shivam was saying, at the Tower of Palthanos when the regent wanted to get it, just like the king priest took the one in Istar. There's a black robe who committed suicide. And I totally missed this the first time because he jumps, and as his body hits the gate and his blood is covering it, he screams, the gates will remain closed and the halls empty until the day when the master of both the past and the present returns with power. And the tower turns gray, the iron twists and becomes black. It's a cursed object shunned by the people of the city, and it's there to this day. And that's a direct reference to Legends, right? That's the whole story of Legends, is that tower being opened back up and what happens there. I never realized that this early, they were planning for the whole Legends trilogy this early. They're setting the seats to little bits and pieces here.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to ask them if they had the whole Legends thing in mind when they put this in here, or if this is just one of the mini hooks that they put in the books that they could pick up later if they wanted, right?
I think at that point, I don't think they had the full story plotted, but I think they definitely knew that they wanted to tell another story. Margaret definitely had a story she wanted to explore about Raistlin and Karamon's codependence and brotherhood. They had this Fist and Dantalus thing, and they know that where Spring Dawning is going.
Yeah.
And so obviously they have like, the master of past and present, what could that mean? And that is such a good hook. It's such a good hook.
Earlier, Raistlin said, oh, those who are weak shouldn't have the Dragon Orbs. It's a bad idea. Alhana says, my dad's not as powerful as your friend. And that surprised me because I was thinking, well, like what level is Raistlin at this point? What, he's like 4, 5 maybe?
Yeah, he's like 4 or 5. He's like, exactly. He's like maybe 4th, 5th level.
And I'm thinking this is like a 600-year-old elf wizard and he's like a level 3?
He was like an apprentice. He like maybe did far enough to take the test and then went back home to be the leader, right?
I guess if you're not an adventurer dedicating your life to fighting, you're not leveling up here.
Alhana says, my father Lorak was an apprentice. He traveled to the Tower of High Sorcery at Istar for the test, which he took and survived. It's there he first saw the Dragon Orb. She says, I'm going to tell you what I've never told anyone and what he's never told except to me. I tell you only because you have a right to know what to expect. During the tests, the Dragon Orbs, Alhana hesitated, seeming to search for the right word, spoke to him, to his mind. It feared some terrible calamity was approaching and said, you must not leave me here in Istar, told him. If so, I will perish and the world will be lost. My father, I suppose you say, he stole the Dragon Orb, although he saw himself as rescuing it. So effectively, yeah. So he's there, he takes the test, he passes, he becomes a white robe, and he's hanging out, and the Dragon Orb is like, hey, buddy, you and me, we're in this together. Maybe we can leave.
Yeah, so he takes it, and then she says, I'm worried because I think he's used it. And then she says, also, don't worry about your friends. They're all right, even the Kinder. They travel to the ice wall in search of a Dragon Orb. And he asks her how she knows, and she says, I gave Sturm a star jewel. Then we learn what a star jewel is and how important it is for elves, because we learn it's a gift between elven lovers that creates a bond between the two that gives strength and power, but it's only for elves. He's like, what is this going to do to Sturm. And he's like, I'm glad they're alive, but I'm very worried. Let me see if I can find it here. In the name of the gods, Tanis breathed, a star jewel. What a rare and priceless gift. A gift exchanged by elven lovers forced to part. The jewel creates a bond between souls. Thus linked, they share the innermost emotions of the loved one and can grant strength to each other in times of need. But never before in Tanis' long life had the half-elf heard of a star jewel being given to a human. What would it do to a human? What kind of effect would it have? And Alhana, she could never love a human, never return love. This must be some sort of blind infatuation. She had been frightened, alone.
Mm-hmm.
No, this could only end in sorrow, unless something changed drastically among the elves or within Alhana herself. Even as Tanis' heart expanded with relief to know Laurana and the others were safe, it contracted with fear and grief for Sturm. Man, they're laying on heavy that like Sturm is just going to be a tragedy here. There's no good outs, it seems, for Sturm in all the hints they're placing here.
It's a fat chance. This is where I'm a little kind of like, they don't use star jewels in Qualinesti.
Oh.
Star jewels are very much a Silvanesti tradition. Now, Tanis grew up with the nobility.
They use sun jewels in Qualinesti, and it's the same thing. It's just shaped like a sun instead of a star.
If they had set that up, I would have bought that in a heartbeat and not thought twice. The culture of Qualinos is very different from the culture of Silvanos, and the culture of the Silvanesti nobility. Remember, Tanis barely recognized that she was Silvanesti to begin with, let alone that she was Alhana Starbreeze, the only elf named Alhana. How the hell is he going to know about the star jewels?
Well, Gilthanis knew it. He didn't. Tanis didn't know who she was. I think Gilthanis told her.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Tanis doesn't.
Yeah.
Because, like, he didn't pay attention.
It's funny. It says in his long life, he's never heard. Dude's only 80. He's like a teenager.
He's like a teenager just out of teens, right? Like
you said, we've already known earlier because Ahana has said to him, like, didn't you listen to your lore masters? And he's like, pretend I didn't and explain this to me.
He's like, look, dude, I had other things to do in school, like not like focus on not getting the crap kicked out of me for being a half-breed. Let's just assume that I don't know, which is a clever trick.
Yeah.
I think though, like, it's weird because like over time we learn Tanis knows a lot of things about being an elf, and there's a lot of obvious things he doesn't know. It's hard to kind of figure out why or how he would know this, but whatever it is. The point is more that the Star Jewel is a hyper rare token of affection, and our boy Sturm is up a creek.
I think we learn more about it because later, because there's like some dreams or stuff that happens, and
there sure are.
We'll find out next time.
Yeah.
But that's chapter 8.
Oh, what a pair of impactful chapters. Incredible.
Whew. The parties are separated again, and I had to make a list again to remember who is in which party. And it sounds like we won't be seeing Laurana's party for a while. We'll be sticking with Tanis. And it hints at it because chapter 9 is Silvanesti entering the dream. So we know they go straight there.
It gets real good from here, man. It gets real good from here.
Want to thank everyone for joining us. I've been Jonathan Howard, and my friend here is Shivam Bhatt. And once again, we want to give a quick shout out to $5 patrons, Alexander Louis and Nicholas Campo. But thank you so much for pledging at the $5 level. That's one of the benefits is we will shout you out here in the podcast. You can find both Shivam and I on our Blue Sky accounts, Shivam Bhatt at bsky.social and False Logic at bsky.social. And we also have a Facebook group that you can just type into the search bar, Chronicles of Dragonlance Podcast.
We're grateful for all your support.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us. Good night. Yellow dragon?
John, you're killing me. There's black.